casting an eye on the electoral roadmap 2020-2021 and what will shape the polls, general elections come 2021. In studio today, I have a very important gentleman to dissect issues around this area. We will always fulfill our promises of bringing to you the updates, both in current affairs, be it political, economic, and social events. Well, we're going to be casting an eye on the electoral roadmap and how prepared is Uganda to hold an election that is eligible and that is going to be trusted by all the electorate. In studio today, I have Mr. Leonard Mulekwa, who is the acting secretary and the director of operations at the Electoral Commission. Yes, please. You're welcome to the STV studios.
Thank you, Elijah, and all our viewers. Good morning. I wish you a nice day. Thank you for this opportunity to interact with the Ugandan citizenry and all viewers and listeners this morning on Bunga Hill.
Absolutely, in Buziga Hill. Well, you're welcome to the STV studios. Well, just to remind you, the viewers, that you can engage with us on all our social media platforms at Ace TV Uganda on Twitter, Ace TV Uganda Facebook, Instagram, and my personal Twitter handle is at Elijah Turia on Facebook, Elijah Turyagumanawe. Engage us, send us questions, because this is going to be an engagement conversation with the acting secretary of the Electoral Commission, who is also doubling as the director of operations. Well, to start with, Mr. Leonard Mulekwa.
Yes, ma'am.
Give us an update of the special interest groups, the elections. How did the Electoral Commission find it? How far have you gone? But also, you can help us understand in terms of you as the acting secretary, but also doubling as the director of operations should be a very stiff job for you. How are you handling the two offices at the same time?
Thank you, Elijah. Well, yes, the two offices of operations and being secretary to the commission. But you see, institutions have systems. So what you do is, as a leader, is to oversee and coordinate the flow of affairs in a coordinated way, in a system. So there is a system at the commission, how things work. So yes, as director of operations, you oversee the technical operations of the institution. Then as secretary, you are the overall coordinator of the institution, overseeing the administration and technical parts. But since there is a system, it's not as difficult as one would see it on the outside, that how can one manage the two busy offices.
Is it overwhelming for you?
But because of the systems in place,
yes,
you are able to coordinate and you're able to move on.
Absolutely.
That's how we have managed so far.
Absolutely. Looking at the revised electoral roadmap that was launched and availed to the public, what are the key milestones that have been achieved so far?
Yeah, maybe before the revised, I will take you back a little. That before the outbreak of the COVID-19 and the consequent lockdown, we had finished a number of activities on the roadmap. And our roadmap normally starts, you remember we launched in 2018, and normally it starts with us identifying areas for representation at the local government level, which we call demarcation of electoral areas. Immediately after that, same time we do look at the areas where people are going to vote from. This is the area of representation. If you took this studio as an area of representation, then we have to set where will the people in this area vote from. So we do what we call reorganization of polling stations, and it's because of new areas created, the growth in voter population, people wanting more polling stations. So we started with that activity way back in last year. After that, we captured, we set up, we even published the polling stations and the areas of representation for purposes of local government in preparation for updating the voters register, which activity we also able to do, and closed on 23rd December last year. So we're able to give opportunity to all Ugandans who are never registered to register as voters, and those who wanted to change locations where they vote from to change. So that activity also ended. Then we went in, we took back the register to the population.
During that activity, I had a conversation with the Chairman Electoral Commission, Justice Simon Byabakama, and I wanted to ascertain if there were any changes, any significant changes in the
normally the
voters
changes
register.
are there, because when we take for display, the community comes up and tells us, yes, this brother of ours, this sister of ours, passed on, and we must remove those ones. We have new people coming on board. We have people changing locations. Maybe he was living in Kampala. Now he's no longer living there. He has moved to Buziga. So that activity takes place.
And considering the circumstances of COVID-19, do you see any unforeseen changes that perhaps during the activities of the updating of the voters register were not predicted?
Well, we have not received complaints related to that as yet, so we think, because the law says you register where you reside or where you originate from. Like person I originate from Rudaka. So if either I register in Rudaka or I register where I reside in Kampala. Okay. So because of that, now with the COVID, even when the lockdown came, people are in their places of either residence or origin. So we have not had any issues raised towards that. So by the time of lockdown, we had just completed the display of the register, and we're retrieving returns. And we're going into elections for special interest groups. That's when we went into lockdown. 3 months, we lost.
Yes. 3 months. We shall discuss the 3 months lag in the Electoral Commission's activities. But also the special interest groups elections, there's persons with disability, the elderly, and the youth.
And the youth.
What are the key issues that came out that you'd love the viewers to understand? Bring us to speed.
I think the key issue is that government put in place affirmative action for a number of previously vulnerable groups. And this was to give these groups opportunity into leadership so that they're able to present issues, unique issues affecting these categories of citizens, so that they're addressed for purposes of planning, for purposes of development. And that's why government came up with the affirmative action. Ordinarily, without that, it would be very difficult for these categories to compete. So they put up the special interest groups as an affirmative action. And these groups include initially the women, the youth, the persons with disabilities, and now the older persons. So all these are groups under affirmative action, so that they are able to access positions of leadership and influence services to these specific groups.
Ultimately, yes.
So to do that, there must be elections to identify leaders for these groups.
Very true.
So in the revised roadmap, we rolled out this activity, and so far we are moving on well. As we speak this morning, we have elections of the older persons at parish level. We started with village level on the 11th with the older persons. We had a very good day and very successful election. We moved on 13th, this very month, we had elections for persons with disability at village level. Then on 17th, we had elections for youth at village level, where we had some challenges in about 48 villages in the country. We were not able to vote on that day, but later they succeeded and had the elections on.
Yes.
Now, this is a progressive election. The leaders who win at village level, in each village, a committee, moves to the parish and forms a parish council. And they elect from among themselves leaders at parish, who also will move to the sub-county. And they are going to move on like that up to the time when they elect members of parliament representing these groups.
Oh, yes. Mr. Leonard, I want you to assure the viewers, but also paint for us a picture of what the scientific campaigns and ultimately scientific polls would look like. And assure Ugandans that even with the 3 months lag in your Electoral Commission activities, preparation, the roadmap activities, that still you can hold an election that they will believe in?
We shall, because when we rolled out the roadmap, yes, we lost time because of COVID-19, and we were able to explain that. You remember some political parties wanted to have more time, and we said because we lost 3 months, the only time available now is this. So all of the activities that we are supposed to conduct, we are going to conduct. But some of them we are going to conduct them under reduced time frames. For example, we are going to have elections today. On Monday we are going to have elections. On Wednesday we are going to have elections. So they are squeezed because we lost time. But it doesn't mean we cannot have good elections. We are going to have good elections because these are different categories. So in terms of setup, we are set.
Is Uganda ready to hold a scientific election? A scientific campaign like that?
Maybe not a scientific, because really it's not scientific. I think the only difference is that it has become a norm now. What we are calling special operating procedures, I think now they have become our day-to-day personal hygiene behavior.
Exactly.
Wearing a mask now is a norm. Keeping distance, like where you are and where I am, and I think this is what is recommended.
Yes,
so
exactly.
they said measure 2 of these.
Social distance.
Social distance, about 2 meters. I think now it's a normal. Washing hands, use of sanitizer. So these are what we are saying. As long as these are in place, I don't think this makes it scientific.
How are you working with stakeholders like Ministry of Health to ensure that we do not have a disaster after the elections?
Well, I think what we want to appeal to Ugandans, we should not look at this as Ministry of Health Affairs. We should not look at this as the Electoral Commission. We should not look at it as police. Some people are asking that police should be there to enforce them to wear masks. It's your personal health. So you need to take up this matter as an individual and make it a must in you that as I leave home, do I have my mask on? Because there is nothing scientific in wearing a mask. There is nothing scientific in washing hands. There is nothing scientific in sanitizer. And once you can wash your hands regularly, you may not even need a sanitizer, but you need a mask. And we are saying as long as these things are there, you can even have a campaign meeting. Provided you are able to distance, you are able to wear a mask, you are able to wash hands. And we think that doesn't make it scientific. Because the campaigns are the ones which are being regulated. And we can do this even without anybody standing there to enforce.
Yeah, very true.
But the leaders, the candidates, the aspiring candidates, the agents should be responsible enough to enforce and ensure that when they're having their meetings, the people keep a distance, that the people are wearing their masks, that the people are washing hands. If we can do that, as a country, we should be able to achieve elections and also safeguard the health of the citizens.
Very true.
If we don't, then I don't think we shall blame Minister of Health or we should blame Electoral Commission. No, we should have ourselves to blame. Even you as an individual. Surely now with COVID-19, I don't think you need anybody to remind you that you need to wear a mask in public. True.
Yes.
That you need to keep distance, that you should not hug. I don't think now we need anybody to remind us.
We need no reminders.
We need to take personal responsibility.
Absolutely. Ugandans out there are wondering how the scientific election will actually be implemented. What are the changes that we'll be witnessing apart from social distancing, wearing masks and all that? Are we still going to see people cast their ballots in a queue or with something different?
I think we are not going to have a scientific election. We're having the usual election. The only change is that we are going to now wear masks. We are going to keep distance between each other. I think those are the critical things.
Exactly.
Thank you for clearing that. On voting, the people will line up as usual. The only difference is that as you leave home, leave with a mask. When you arrive at the polling station, before you access the polling station, we shall ask you to wash your hands. As you leave the polling station, we shall ask you to wash your hands. Those personal hygiene behavior
Very true.
are the difference. In the past, you would come in, nobody is asking for washing hands, nobody is in a mask. I think that's the only difference. But we shall line and vote as we have been doing. So, and I think this is not scientific election. It's the usual election we have been having. Because we shall vote the way we have been voting. So, because scientific means maybe people vote online. I don't think Uganda is ready for that.
But then the campaigns have been hugely affected.
Yeah, they have been affected.
Some have been curtailed.
No campaign has been curtailed.
We've seen security agencies stopping some political participants from holding debates on media platforms, on the waves, on broadcast stations. How would you explain that? If the elections are going to be credible and you want the electorates to believe in, then the campaigns have to be on a level ground. The media. Exactly. So if the media, how is the media going to be used? Let's discuss this as well. Who is going to foot the bills? Because some cannot actually afford that. Is everyone going to be allowed to access media stations? Because recently we've seen political participants, mostly the opposition participants, being barred from accessing media stations. To mention,
maybe we should look at why are they bad. I think we need to find out at that point.
And mostly
because we have had, yes, some people have been stopped even holding meetings, but we also need to look at. I've seen some clips on TV from various political players, and some of them, the political players themselves are not responsible enough. In terms of... They are not guiding their followers on social distance, on wearing masks. Because this health is a personal matter.
So it's a precautionary measure?
Yes. So if you want to hold a meeting, for example, we have said we are not limiting number. You can even hold 1,000 people, provided the meeting point meets the required COVID-19 measures. And which are these measures? That people are able to distance. For example, if you say you have space like this studio and you want to hold a meeting here of 100 people, can they fit under COVID measures?
No.
So if you want to insist that you want to hold them here, what will happen? We shall stop you. Now when we stop you, will you say we have stopped you?
How about on a TV station, on a radio station, where they're just going to be speaking to the public, just like we're having a one-on-one
you come like I came, alone. If I'm going to come in a convoy, so many people are following, maybe I'm even on open roof. Is that okay?
Of course not.
So what should we do? Should we allow it to continue?
Not
endangering all the people who are following you?
Of course not.
I think in this case, we need to look at, if someone is stopped, why is the person stopped? Why is the other not stopped? And I think in this case, police should be able to stop, irrespective of political party affiliation. As long as someone is violating the standard operating procedures for holding a campaign meeting, people should be stopped, irrespective of...
Some politicians might feel like COVID-19 is being used as an excuse. What would you say to them out there?
Well, that's their opinion. But as far as we are concerned, it's not only Uganda that's being affected by COVID-19. Many countries, and we have been guided so by the highest body in the area of human health, World Health Organization. We have seen even the advanced countries have put in place the same measures we have here, of wearing masks, of social distance, of hand washing.
At that very point, I would ask you, why then go ahead to hold an election when you knew it was risky for the populace?
Good. Why? You see, as a country, we are guided by
because some countries have postponed.
And our laws, each country has its laws. For example, there are countries where the president is the one who announces the voting day. In our country, I don't think the president can announce a voting day. Yes? Because the Constitution has guided who announces voting day, the Electoral Commission.
It will be constitutional.
So even here, the Constitution directs us when elections should be held. So because the Constitution does so, as Commission, we came out and said, look, the Constitution is telling us we must hold elections between 10th January and 8th February 2021. That's what the Constitution is saying. For it doesn't know COVID or no COVID. Once it directs it so, so it's up to you to sit down. In this environment of COVID-19, how do we achieve elections without endangering the population?
Mr. Mulekwa, let's look at your agenda coming into office as the acting secretary of the Electoral Commission. The Constitution gives you a mandate of 6 months as acting. That means your tenure will be expiring towards the elections. Briefly, take us through your agenda coming into office. What were you looking at? What areas are you putting your focus and concentration on? But also, will it be achieved before the elections?
Okay, you see, taking office, especially public office, there are guidelines and regulations that govern that. When you are appointed, say like you are saying, I'm appointed on acting basis as Secretary Electoral Commission. There are procedures, how if I am to be confirmed in that office, how I should be confirmed.
Oh, yes.
It's the appointing authority, in this case the commission, to assess if I'm meeting the requirements of the office, if I'm delivering as expected. It's up to them to assess and say, yes, I think we are now satisfied that we can confirm this person. It's not that I should be there and campaign to be confirmed. It doesn't happen in that way.
It does.
So those procedures which are there have to be set. Yes, I've had people talk of 6 months, but 6 months will coincide with the elections. I don't know about the 6 months. It could be 6 months, it could be less, it could be more. It's up to.
But at least we know constitutionally 6 months.
No, it's not in
the
the
acting
Constitution.
position.
The guidelines, the public service standing orders guide.
Exactly.
So, and that's what I'm saying, depending on the assessment of the, in this case, the commission, it could be less than 6 months, it could be 6 months, it could be more than 6 months. Yeah.
Very true.
Depends on how they are satisfied that the officer is serving.
Moving away from that, let's look at the internal issues of the Electoral Commission. In the previous 1.5 months, we've seen quite a number of changes. We've seen people getting sacked. And some of these events have not been clearly explained to the public to understand them to the core. What could have led to some of these changes?
Well, as Director Operations, I'm a member of the Commission. And to the best of my understanding, nobody has been sacked by anybody. Colleagues at work, for reasons known to them, they requested
to stand down,
to cut short their stay with the Commission, and they put in these notices to the Commission requesting that they should be let go. And this is documented, it's there. If really someone wanted even that kind of evidence from the people, even the people themselves who left, I'm sure they can be reached and they will tell you that at their own will. Maybe it coincides that
Mr. Mulekwa,
there
is no smoke without fire. And on institutional grounds and management of institutions, there could have been issues that led to this. Were they probably persuaded into that direction? What could have happened internally?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not so
Very
far aware of anybody persuading them to
rumors around registration of NUP and
it's good you are calling them rumors.
That's why I'm calling them rumors,
of course,
so you
when,
can justify.
When people don't know and something happens, they can attribute anything as having caused. But the fact is, the best of what we know, the colleagues submitted in letters requesting to be let go. And as I said, these people are available. They can also be reached. I'm sure people have their media, you have their contacts.
At least the former spokesperson of the institution.
You have his contacts. Even the former secretary, you have his contacts.
Yes.
I'm sure they can be reached, and I'm sure they will tell you
absolutely
that we voluntarily left. Because if I say I ask to leave on personal grounds, and I've not divulged the grounds, now me as a staff at the commission, can I know the personal grounds? I cannot. It's to the person leaving who can know. So in terms of details, the real cause, maybe the people left could be able to explain. But at least I'm sure they can tell you that they willfully left the commission. Nobody sacked them. No, but because there were insinuations that the president sacked them. The president has no power to sack anybody at the commission.
On public relations grounds, doesn't this damage your public image in terms of holding a credible election?
Why? Because people live everywhere in public service, not only at the Electoral Commission. I'm sure even in the media houses, one can live. Yeah, you can put in your letter, willingly say no.
Resignation.
You say no, either I'm resigning or I'm terminating my contract or I'm taking early retirement.
Oh, yes.
And normally, when someone takes, the institution cannot say no.
Very true.
Yeah. And it should not affect, like I said, we have systems in place. So if one person left, because even people retire, out of age, and you know how many ways do people leave institutions? One, the normal way is people retire, people change jobs, people can be called off, and the person. So in all these avenues, when people leave, but because of the systems that are in institutions, yes, you may feel a gap, but you are able to catch up because of the systems set up. It's not a one-person affair. It's a team issue. So that's why I think for us we have been able to feed in. I'm sure in terms of public relations and spokesperson, I'm sure Paul Kenya has had to come in because he was part of the system. You see, that's what I'm talking about in terms of system.
Oh, yes.
So he has been able to step in. I'm sure you have seen that.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So we should be able to move on, and that shouldn't affect, I want to assure Ugandans, shouldn't affect the conduct of elections.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we shall go for a short break, but when we come back, Mr. Leonard Mulekwa will be addressing the issues concerning the elections and how prepared the Electoral Commission is to hold an election in a time like this where we're just exiting a crisis of COVID-19 and how the standard operation procedures should be observed going forward. Let's go for a short